Hey everyone, welcome to Unearth with Shelly Hughes. I'm Shelly Hughes. Today is actually part 2 of our episode with George Council. He is speaking a ton just about culture and enrollment and his experience from the military and how the discipline and integrity and all the things translate over to business. I really like this episode because he gets into the nitty-gritty of exactly what the exercises and the practices and the rituals he does to really increase that ownership between everyone between C-suite level staff to line level staff and really everything in between. So we also get into those final questions about the good, the bad, and the ugly, his experiences in business that really resonate with me in a lot of ways. Keep listening, and this is part 2 with George Council. So going back to your experience in your story, you said a lot of what the military, the Naval Academy, St. Joe's Prep, all that kind of stuff did was teach you a lot of discipline and integrity. It taught you about people. How, again, I'm very lucky because I don't see this in my company very much, and maybe it's our hiring process or what have you, but I'm dealing with a lot of colleagues who their businesses, they struggle a lot with some of the younger generation and the lack of a lot of these things. And if someone doesn't have discipline or believe in hard work or have that integrity, they do what they say they're gonna do, they're not gonna be very good leaders. So is that something where you keep an eye out when you hire and you ask certain questions when you hire to make sure that those core values are in these people? Or is that something you think that can develop?
That's a great question. I do try to see, I'm not a big, especially in the corporate world, I'm not a big person on 1, 2, 3, 4 interviews. Now, I get a sense, I think most of us get a sense for what someone's about 15 minutes. 15 minutes, you can teach, if someone's there interviewing, hopefully you've done your homework and they have the credential. But within 15 minutes, I think you should know whether or not there's someone that fits your culture. I won't tell you we've always gotten it right. But when you don't get it right, I think this is not news to anyone probably listening here. You need to correct that quickly. We've had, our leadership team has been pretty stable, but our supervisory level and line level, we've made changes and we've made them pretty quickly. Just because of what you said, we realize that people aren't here for what we stand for and what we do. I'd like to believe that look, everybody has to get paid. I'd like to believe if you do great work, I think our guys feel good that they'll get promoted, they'll get more money. But what you have to do when you come into at least our culture and our environment, it's about the team, and it has to be about the team. To answer your question probably even more directly, I don't have to hold our line level guys accountable. Our line level guys hold the new employees accountable. So if you come in and you're not on board and you're not a team player and you're not here to learn and you're not going to become as fast as you can a contributor to our team, those guys and ladies are going to let you know it. So to me, that's the greatest, I think, proof that we're doing something right from a culture standpoint, because they're not going to stand for it because it reflects on them and it reflects on their company. I'd like to think that most of my employees see our company as their company as well.
Yeah, that goes into the pride of what they do. So I would love if you could, I think firing is one of the hardest things that employers have to do, especially those first couple. So could you tell me a time, and obviously we're not going into much detail, but tell me a time when you had to make one of those corrections rather quickly.
And with someone that I had to fire.
And again, not going into detail, but just what did you notice and what was it? Was it a cultural issue? Was it a skill issue? And was there a performance plan in place? And just what your thought process was? Or you said, hey, this just isn't going to work.
Yeah. It always comes down usually to the cultural issue starts it where they don't fit our culture, and then the performance follows. That's the way it goes. I'd say the majority of people that I've had to fire, and even my own team, has accused me of trying to change people too long. Everybody will say you can't change people. I think you can to an extent. And there's this line that you cross where I think that if I was going to challenge anything that I do that I think I could improve on, I'd probably take it a little longer when it comes to trying to fix somebody. I know earlier I said you got to make a quick correction. I think we're pretty good. I don't know if people can see that, but if the line is if you start and I see something here, we're very good. Let's go. We're not even going to invest. But once we've invested time, I've gotten to know you as a person. Typically, I will probably let it linger a little bit too long as I try to course correct in the middle.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest thing. And it is hard to let people go when that happens. But usually we've gone through, we do the things that most people do, right? We do performance improvement plans and we do all that stuff. But there comes a time where the individual obviously has to make a decision that they're going to make a change. And when they don't do that, then we do have to let people go. And it's never easy.
So personally, it's interesting. You say you're this fire starter, right? But again, so it's also very interesting because you have had roles as director of operations and very obviously structure and efficiency. And that's a huge skill set of yours. So it's interesting, this dichotomy of that. And now you're a fire starter, right? It seems like two different sides of your brain. So how does that play together for you?
What I'll tell you is I think I learned to get the right, even in the corporate world, I just learned to get the right teams around me to complement. I think some people are intimidated by people who are better than they are at other things. I think the smarter leaders of us, we gather people that kind of hide our deficiencies. So I would say military was one thing, and I don't know that I really was that different, even though I was in a different environment. In the military, I had ideas, but when you fired it up, the only difference was you grabbed a group of people, you said, do this, and it's done. They just go. It's like having the ultimate chess pieces, right? You just say go. There's no questioning what you're doing. That's really the only difference. And you don't get to choose, obviously, who's around you, but everyone's has their roles and follows their roles. The only thing different, I think, in the business world is that you have to make sure you have those people around me. So even from the very beginning, I learned to build teams that kind of were able to run. There were certain people that I'll never say who this person was, but had one person come to me, a mid-level manager, and he said, I will work night and day. I'll get everything you've done. You give me what you want and I'll get it done. I don't want to be in the idea meetings and I don't want to do the corporate policy. I don't want any of that, but you give me the stuff. That's what that person loves to do. I make sure that I have the right people around me. Some people are natural implementers. Yeah. So I think to answer your question, I think I've always been a fire starter, but I think I got pretty good at building teams to allow me to do that. I would hope at the end of the day it ends up being super valuable, that the ideas I'm coming up with are good ones and that the people that are doing it feel like they're great ideas. But I would say even now, especially as a small business owner, maybe a few, too many going on for what we have right now. We have a lot of ideas we want to implement, and we need to focus and probably narrow that list down a little bit.
Yeah, one thing that I do not do a very good job at is estimating the amount of time that it takes to implement some things. Late last year, I actually just took a look at my to-do list. I'm like, wait a second. Every single bullet point on this to-do list is a months-long project, and it's just a single bullet point on my to-do list. I'm like, that's just setting me up for failure. So yeah, it's definitely, and then it's communicating priority. That's another thing. It's, if you're shouting off all these ideas, then like something that I've experienced is, oh, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And then I'm like, wait, what about this thing over there? Yep. And it's
too many priorities is no priority.
Too many priorities is no priorities, right? And so that's been something that I work on.
That's a tough one I think for anybody, because I know my team would laugh now that I literally came back from a conference and said the same thing we just talked about. We talked about it there, and you've heard the term probably WIG, wildly important goals, right? You should never have more than 1 to 2. The statement was, if you have 1 to 2, you'll accomplish 1 to 2. If you have 4 to 6, you'll accomplish 1 to 2.
Yeah.
If you have more than 7, you won't accomplish any of them.
Yeah.
So I came back and said, we're gonna have 1 to 2, and basically I ended up with so many goals that I had to take the WIG goal off. So I have not succumbed to that and I have to get better at that.
Yeah, that's, again, it all goes back to discipline. It's there. So in this podcast, we like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of building a passionate, profitable business. So let's start with the good. What are some things, like, tell me about a high in your experience in your business? Something like either a moment or a period of time where it was simply just a high point for you.
That's an easy one for me. We were relatively early in our business cycle. We got a very large project from a super nice client who trusted us wholeheartedly, and he gave us a challenge at his home. He was a very meticulous person, so he wanted exact spacing with a certain portion of his lighting at a very large home, and he also wanted to basically control the seasons around his home. So we had an idea to basically light. He had over 10 acres, and this was by far the largest job we'd ever done. So we lit his 10 acres up with hundreds of lights, our highest end lighting, color changing lighting. And looking back on it, that was you've got to progress as an organization. That was a very challenging job for us to take on at that point. We had some new employees, again, early in the cycle, but we went out and we just nailed it. We actually won a design award for that across the country. We won the award for design for that just because of the aerial shots we were able to take of the structured lighting we laid out. He was a very engineering-like individual, so he wanted that to be perfect. And the lighting around his property was just phenomenal that he can control on his phone. So that was an absolute high point. I was very proud of our design team, very proud of our implementation team, and just proud of where we were and finally saw really the light of how far we could go in the outdoor lighting industry with that.
What do you think was the main element of that success?
I would say one was knowing what you don't know. Like, we didn't know how big a project it was. We'd done that, so we didn't know what we were heading into from that perspective. But we knew that we would do whatever it took to make sure we gave this client what they needed. So that was really the driver that we knew we were going to deliver. We didn't know how difficult it was going to be to deliver it. And we didn't really care how difficult it was going to be. So I knew I had the right people around me then.
Yeah, to go with the punches. I heard once recently that business ownership and entrepreneurship is 85% bad and 15% good. And it's that 15% that is good enough for us to not quit. So you can't have a podcast like this without talking about the bad.
Yeah. Yep.
Tell me your thoughts on that. And I would love for you to share maybe a moment where you were like, this is not what I was expecting.
Yep. That I'll give you a couple of those, actually. There's another saying that obviously we all small business owners talk because we need someone to like unleash all the tough stuff that we're doing.
For sure.
Because owning a small business is tough. And I always say the only person that thinks it's cool to own a small business is someone who doesn't own a small business. So it's a ton of work, right? It is, the buck actually stops with you, right? And I think when I talk about difficulty, you have to learn that in most instances, you're going to do a lot of hard work and you're going to be making a lot of sacrifices financially to get to where ultimately you need to be. So I think that's one of the hardest things for people. If you watch a bunch of shows, typically you don't jump in, buy this business, buy a $2,000 suit and start attending board meetings, right? You go in and initially I was installing. So I remember I was an executive VP at a company. I had a beautiful office. My biggest worries were how was I going to get around all the political roadblocks? And within months, I was out in someone's yard digging 4-inch holes and burying wire. And you take a step back and you go, what in the heck? What am I doing? How'd this happen? You're all dirty. You're going, how'd this happen? And I remember I reached in and I just took a look at my business card and saw that it said owner.
Yeah.
I'm the owner. I'm making the decisions. I have a lot to say about what happens and what my future is going to be. I would say that was a tough moment, along with the understanding that there's a lot of work that's going to come in before I get the financial reward. And if I was talking to anybody who wanted to step in, I would say absolutely do it, but go into it with the idea that you're doing it because of that when you want to control your own destiny, right? So when you work for someone else, I don't think you realize it as much when you're there. People say, well, it's risky to own a business. Well, it's risky to be an employee. You can be gone tomorrow, just like you could have issues with your business. But the difference is you can control. You have some, not all, but you have some control over that, right? If you want to do more or you need more or you want to have a different kind of life, you can make plans to do that within your business with your decisions. If you decide that you're okay where you are and what you want, you basically prize your life and what your time and what you want to do, you can do that as well. The control part, I think, is the great part, but you have to go into it understanding that there are going to be some sacrifices in the beginning.
And we can't finish this episode without talking about the ugly. The messy middle of owning a business and entrepreneurship and running a team. Can you give me an example of a time where it was a relatively ugly and messy time and just how you navigated that?
Yep. I actually have a great one I want to tell you. And I think this was a good lesson for me. It's another great leadership lesson, which I love. So we had an employee come in, absolutely killing it. He was part of our line level and our operations team. Within 30 days, he mastered most of what we do technically, learned how to sell, and was actually talking to clients, selling them huge additions and installing them himself on site. We were blown away. Sky's the limit. That employee, though, within 3 months, completely did a downhill, went all the way down to the point where they were just disenchanted that we had to let them go. And so I had to step back and we went, like, how in 3 months can you do that? So what I did is I decided to go into our ops group, and I worked in our ops group as a tech, because it had been 5 years since I'd been in the field, and I worked in the field for a week with my guys and realized that we were basically out there because we had some guys that had been there a while, We were just doing our thing, just not following anything that had been established years earlier. And it was a very frustrating experience. So at the end, were we getting the work done? Was the client getting a quality product? Yes. And so what I realized is I would have been worse than the employee that left. I would have lost it on the way that we were running projects.
Wow.
So I ended up calling that employee up. I apologized. We brought him back.
Wow.
Not only did we bring him back, he's now one of our highest grossing salespeople. We brought him back, pulled him back into the corporate office, found out what was going on. I told him we understood, because the unfortunate thing is he did not have any sort of a business background. So his frustration came out in lack of performance. He just didn't have the tools to express what the problem was. But once we realized, we brought him back. He's one of our greatest salespeople now, and he's thriving. That was really, I think, the dirtiest, to go in there and realize that all the best practices we had put in place had pretty much been eroded. So we fixed that.
It reminds me of, what's that show? It's called Undercover CEO or Undercover Boss,
Yes.
or something like that.
Yes, Undercover Boss.
Obviously, you couldn't be undercover, but that is such a challenge for me too. I can't be on every single client call. I don't know exactly how things are run. But to your point, it's that accountability that you have developed of everyone of each other. But it's also, how do you teach how to make a decision, right? Again, decentralized command. How do you teach, okay, this is how we make decisions? Because it can be so nuanced, especially from a service-based business. It's definitely more nuanced, where there's very unique challenges. I'm sure in your businesses, one thing that I've realized is, if I can, again, I took a 3-week maternity leave for my second kid, and I came back and I learned about the decisions that were made, and I was so impressed, because they were all decisions based on our core value. They were all decisions that might not have been exactly the way I would do. They were all linked back to our philosophy and how we work. And so I think if you can figure that out, it's such an asset, because I think you can have every SOP in the world, but if you can't have that decentralized command and have people autonomously make decisions for themselves, as close to the way that you would, man, you can then become the owner and not the operator.
Absolutely. And then it's sky's the limit when you can do that. You have to give them the opportunity, but you also have to obviously train them to do it. And you have to understand the person's weakness, strengths and weaknesses that is trying to do that. And sometimes it's not obvious.
Yeah.
When you've been around for a minute, there are some things that you think everyone knows. You've been there, and then you realize when you have conversation that it's not innate. It's not just standard operations for everyone. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Make sure they have that base.
So our final question in this podcast is
it almost over already?
It is almost over already. Is really about, again, we talk about the people who think business is sexy are the ones that don't own a business, right? There has to be a belief that you have to get you through those bad and messy and dirty times. What to you has been that core belief, either in yourself or the universe or whatever, that gets you through those pretty tough times?
Yep. I think that there are a few, but I think if I had to choose one, I would say making sure that you, as the leader, the owner, the CEO, whatever you want to call yourself, all the way down to your line workers and every supervisory level in between, that they understand that they're there to serve. So my supervisors and my middle managers understand, for example, on the operations side, that when I have a guy up on the roof that's doing wiring and you're there, you should be down there preparing the next slat that needs to go up, making sure it's ready so that when they come down, it's ready to go. You've put everything in the right places, because you're not there to tell people what to do. You're there to make their job easier. So I think if you do that, and I try to express that all the way from the top, my sales guy, if he's not having a good week, a good month, I'd look at it in terms of, what am I not doing? What do I need to do to help you have a better month? What is it that I'm not providing that you need to do your job better, because you're not succeeding, so I'm going to take some responsibility. That's the biggest core thing. I think that if every business could take that into account, and that takes into account all generations, all ages, everyone, it's what they want. They want you to support them. Like I said, most of the time, we said earlier, they're not coming to work to fail. They're coming to work to do well, and they're expecting you to provide them with everything that they need to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. George, thank you.
Thank you. It was great. I had a great time.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming to the home podcast studio and sharing your experience, even from just purchasing a business and making those decisions based on what kind of business you want to purchase and based on your experiences, what you've learned. It's fascinating to me, because it's true. Everyone has control of their destiny. One does. It's do you take action on that control versus do you just let life happen to you?
And what are you willing to give to get it? Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. So hopefully if anyone ever wants this, I'm a wide open book. Would love to share my story with anyone that wants to ever talk to me. So I'm sure there'll be some information on outdoor lighting perspectives here. I'd love to talk to you. And also, we would love to do any of your homes. We are a full service outdoor lighting company that can do anything, and I mean anything, from an outdoor lighting perspective that you can think of. We'd love to help.
I love it. And how can people best contact you?
So the best way to contact us is to call us on our phone number, 610-340-2322. We give free consultations. If you come out, you're just thinking about anything having to do with lighting, let the experts. We're actually the only national company that handles outdoor lighting only. We're the only national company that focuses on that solely. So give us a call. We can talk about any system you have. There's no charge for us to come out. You'll never pay a dime unless you decide that you want us to design and implement your system.
And it's springtime, so it's a perfect time to set your outdoor area up to be a nice little living area.
We like to think, and we do know, we extend your day. Even though 9 o'clock's a hard time to end the party, right? So let's extend. We actually give you time. And we transform, and we like to also talk about transformation and experience. So we're actually I like to say we're the only thing you can do to your home, the most impactful thing you can do to your home that can be done in 24 hours to transform your property. So you look at it one night, your home looks one way, and in 24 hours, it looks like a completely different home. Nobody else can do that for you.
That's incredible. George, thank you so much.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Shelly. It was a pleasure.
And of course, if you like this podcast, send it to a friend, send it to a colleague. Please rate and review. It really helps get this podcast in the earbuds of people who need to hear this information. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. See you next time.